Welcome back to Neva Dark. I'm Nancy Vasquez, and this week I'm going to share with you guys a historic crime story that happened in Virginia City, Nevada, back in the 1860s. A silver boomtown filled with miners, millionaires, and a woman whose legend has endured long after her tragic end. Her name was Julia Bulette. Julia was brutally murdered more than 155 years ago, but her memory lives on in historic plaques, theater performances, ghost stories, and even a saloon named after her. But who was Julia Bulette? Julia was born in the late 1830s. Her exact birthplace is uncertain. Some say London, others say Mississippi. But Julia at that time was known as a quadroon, meaning she was 1/4 African American. Her father, though, was French. Her mother, a respected black woman from New Orleans. Sadly, her mother died when Julia was just 2 years old, leaving her and her siblings behind. In the world Julia grew up in, a girl like her was expected to pick cotton and raise her orphan siblings. But Julia had other plans. Her uncle Jules, her father's brother, took her on boat trips from New Orleans. There she saw women dressed in fine clothes, escorted by gentlemen. Curious, she asked her uncle who they were. They're courtesans, he told her. They entertained the gentlemen. Julia was intrigued. They traveled, dressed well, had freedom, and at 16 she knew what she wanted. She told her uncle, and with his help she began working as an upper-class courtesan. She even had her own apartment, and she never worked in a brothel, and was known for her intelligence. She could discuss literature, music, and current events. Her uncle helped her manage her business and arranged meetings with wealthy men visiting New Orleans. During the gold rush, Julia moved west with her uncle and cousin Paul, who eventually took over her affairs. But San Francisco was full with women of the trade, and according to her, the men were dirty. So she and Paul moved again, first to Sacramento, then to Carson City, and finally to Virginia City in 1863. It's worth noting that while in San Francisco, Julia developed a deep admiration for the fire department, inspired by their bravery in frequent fires and earthquakes. She arrived in Virginia City at the height of the silver boom. Prostitution was the most important occupation for women on the Comstock. Laundry and domestic work paid less than $25 a month. But Julia, tall, elegant, and witty, quickly stood out. She worked on D Street, just below the city's bustling business center, where she became known as the Queen of the Street. She wasn't just a courtesan. Julia gave back. She became a volunteer firefighter, helping to pump water and extinguish fires. During flu outbreaks, she reportedly helped serve soup and tended to the sick. In honor of her service, she was made an honorary member of the Virginia City Engine Company No. 1 and received a personalized firefighter's uniform complete with a helmet and a belt. Julia took care of her health. She visited the doctor regularly and used contraception. But by her mid-30s, an age that was considered old for a courtesan, things were getting tougher. She had mounting medical bills, alcohol expenses, and entertainment debt. On January 20 of 1867, Julia's life came to a brutal end. That morning, her friend Gertrude Holmes, or some say her maid, came with breakfast and found Julia unalived. She was partially clothed, brutally beaten, and strangled. Her room seemed undisturbed, and her body had been carefully tucked under the sheets, as if she were just sleeping. Even her handyman, who came in earlier to light a fire, didn't suggest a thing. Julia had struggled against her attacker. There were tears on her pillow and bruises on her body. She had been beaten with a pistol and a piece of firewood, and many of her fine clothes and jewelry were missing. The alleged motive? Robbery. But Julia had few valuables left. The town was stunned and demanded justice. Her funeral was held the next day at the B Street Firehouse. It was a bitterly cold, windy, and snowy day, but hundreds came. The firefighters bought her a mahogany coffin with silver handles valued at around $149 at the time. A brass band led a procession of mourners in carriages to Flowery Hill Cemetery. Julia couldn't be buried in consecrated ground because she was considered a woman of ill repute. Instead, she was buried outside, alone. In Virginia City, the taverns closed. The first time since President Lincoln's assassination. Firefighters sang as they returned up the snowy hill. The investigation led to a man named John Millian, a 38-year-old French immigrant. He had served in the Crimean War, worked odd jobs, and didn't speak English well. He was arrested after selling one of Julia's dresses in Gold Hill. However, his court-appointed attorney believed Millian was innocent. The case dragged on for over a year and even reached the Nevada Supreme Court. But in the end, Millian was sentenced to unalivement by hanging. Some say that John Millian did not understand English well. Some wondered if his command of English was such that he even understood court proceedings. It was also rumored that Julia had previously testified against another killer, and rumor had it that that man had returned to Nevada shortly before her death and believed that he was the real killer. On April 24th of 1868, more than 4,000 people, including children, gathered to witness Millian's public unalivement. Mark Twain, a former newspaper reporter of Virginia City, was among them. Ironically, Millian was buried just a few feet away from Julia in the section of Flowery Hill reserved for criminals and courtesans. The two now rest in unmarked graves, forgotten by some. Julia's Bulette story endures, however, not only because of her murder, but because she was a woman who defied expectations. She lived bravely, gave back to her community, and left behind a mystery that we still talk about today. And I thank you for listening to this episode of Never Dark. Let me know what you thought in the comment section, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.